Rob, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very much. Very much looking forward to this conversation.
So, Rob, for those in our audience, in the communications infrastructure audience who don't know who PomeGran is, can you tell us a little bit about the company?
Sure. So PomeGran's been around for a few years, but we have our genesis going back almost 20, 30 years when we started off as an OEM equipment manufacturer. And then about 7 years ago, our CEO realized that the OEM, that side of the business, they had a lot of lumpy revenue, and he was looking to get into more of a reoccurring revenue model. So we launched an ISP in Newfoundland. And for your viewers who are unfamiliar with what Newfoundland is all about, picture Maine and then throw it about 150 miles north into the Atlantic and get rid of all the trees and put down a lot of rocks and things and make it hard rock and all that type of environment. And then population's about 250,000 across the whole island,
Oh,
about 120 plus communities.
and you provided service there. And you provide fiber service or
We
tel?
provide wireless service throughout the island. So the primary reason there's 12,000 miles of coastline, and we serve 120 of those communities.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. So I assume certainly with wireless, it's a lot easier to build out. Can you talk a little bit about your acquisition strategy? If I had this right, between March in 2021 and March in 2022, you acquired four different companies. Is that right?
yeah. So we acquired Cochrane Telecom, which is a 100-year-old Silac in Northern Ontario.
Okay,
It's that has that was transitioning to a fiber first business.
got it.
They serve a small rural community, and that was our first major acquisition in March of 2021. And it was followed shortly thereafter in July of that year of a company called uh, Canquest Communications, and they're in southwestern Ontario. And again, a small rural ISP. The county that it serves is about 110,000 population.
Wow, so small communities. Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then in September of that year, we acquired Digicom, which is with the oldest wireless ISP in Quebec.
And
And again,
how has that transition gone?
that transition has gone amazingly. So when we acquired the company, it was 100% WISP. Uh, and just as we were acquiring them, they had received a government grant to build out a hybrid fiber network for serving 600 homes.
Oh, got it.
And
Okay.
once we've acquired them, the Quebec government reached out to us directly and asked if we would like to participate in a larger fiber to the home project.
And one
And
that was actually my next question. How has that gone? I mean,
it's
challenges,
gone
learnings.
well. See, normally when as you know, most fiber projects it's multi-year projects. We received the we signed the contract in late November of that year. We
Hmm.
started laying fiber in March of 2022, and we're hoping to finish the project to the premise in the next few weeks. And that includes 2.5 months for winter shutdown because of winter conditions in the marketplace. From start to finish, we really only had sort of like basically 1 year to do a fiber to the home deployment for 30,000 passings.
And I mean, in the US, that would be challenging because we'd find like labor issues and things like that. Did you find any of that?
Well, partly the reason why we've been successful is we have experience across multiple businesses and technologies. We have a very good supply chain and very good relationships with our suppliers. And so we've been able to circumvent a lot of those challenges in the supply chain on the technology side. We have an incredible core of engineers who really worked exceptionally hard to figure out how to get fiber in 1 year to 30,000 passings,
Right.
given the constraints that the industry has experienced over the past 2 years due to COVID. and they succeeded over and beyond our expectations.
And how has the take rate been?
The take rate, again, we're now starting to see some lift off on that because because we have a winter shutdown, it made it a bit more challenging.
Sure.
But we are projecting that by the end of this year, we'll have about a 40% take rate. And we're anticipating that over the next few years, we're hoping to get up to 70% take rate. And the reason for our high take rate is because we serve rural communities. We, in most cases, we only have we only have the incumbent there. And in a lot of cases, some of them are still offering broadband services via XDSL type of service offering. So we have a heavy competitive advantage vis-a-vis them.
Got it. Okay. Yes, I would assume that was my next question is who's your competition or what kind of technology?
Yeah, in most cases, in most across the board, I apologize. In most cases, our competitors are the incumbents, and they're and potentially satellite solution offerings.
Got it. But the incumbents, you're not seeing the fiber. They have not. You're the first. You're fiber first in that market.
Correct. For them, they would rather go after the major metropolitan areas than go after the smaller rural marketplaces. And they will only go after the smaller rural markets if there's a government mandate or government to basically force them into those marketplaces. So for us, these are huge. This is a huge marketplace, and they are underserving their customers, and we are very much willing to serve their customers and grow that business.
So, Rob, if you look at your competitors, how would you say, I mean, you've been quite active on the M&A front. How does that differ from competitors? Are you seeing a wave of consolidation, but from them as well?
In the markets that we competed, there is consolidation. The challenges that the incumbents have faced is the Rogers and Shaw, which are the two main incumbents in Canada. Two of the main incumbents are going through a protracted acquisition, which has kind of put them off to the sidelines. And so the other major players really are either digesting larger acquisitions that they've occurred, or they're doing acquisitions in the $50 to $75 million price points. And we target companies in a much smaller price point, so we don't really see a lot of competitive. We haven't had any opportunities where we've had to go through an auction. Usually, all it is a buy. It's a negotiations with the seller directly.
Interesting. Okay. And what about greenfield builds? I mean, you've been how does the company think about M&A versus greenfield builds?
We think we look at it as one of the same, into a regard. And I think the reason is when we started off this process, we really looked at a roll-up. That's really all we started about, is looking at how do we do roll-up and acquisitions of rural ISPs. I have a strong background in that in doing roll-ups. That's what I originally thought. But then as we went through the process and started talking to various industry folks such as yourselves, we came to the realization that really doesn't create a lot of accretive value for the business from an investor point of view. Right. But when you couple that with basically doing a greenfield, then you get an amazing multiplier effect. Our estimate is M&A plus greenfield, we can get multiples that are potentially 20 to 30 to 40% better than if we had just done one or the other.
Wow. Okay. Jeez. Wow, that's interesting. And I guess putting back on your acquisition hat, if you're looking for an acquisition, what is the key punch list you look for that they have to have before you'd even consider it?
That's a very good question. I think really for us, it really boils down to, is there a cultural fit? Can we see working with this team for the next X number of years? Because really, it's a family. Because we go after small rural ISPs that are ingrained into their community. And the fact that we keep the brand, you can't, if in a normal situation, if you acquired a company, an ISP that was in New York City, and you acquired just the company list of customers, and you shut it down, not a lot's going to happen. Not a lot of ways will happen. People are kind of used to that. You go into a community where 30, 50,000 people and you shut down a business that had employed 25, 50 people, everyone will know, and it has a lot of ill will. So we really make sure that we are acquiring a company that we want to be as part of our family for a long period of time. Next, we also look at, as you said earlier, greenfield opportunities. We want to ensure that if we're buying a company that has, say, 10,000 plus customers, can we grow that to 25, 30,000 customers over X number of years by looking at fiber passings that we can expand through our platform. So we look at that, we look at the numbers, and then we want to make sure that this is this is a good solid deal for us. It makes our investors happy. It allows us to provide additional value services to the underserved communities, and allows them to move from where they may have been in a hybrid or an old copper network to more of a fiber first network. And we look to transition that as quickly as possible.
Interesting. Do you all rely on grants? I mean, I don't know. In Canada, have the grants been as prolific as in the US?
In every acquisition we made, we never looked at grants as a driver for making a decision.
Okay.
Post acquisition, if a grant comes to, like with the Quebec government grant, which was hugely beneficial to us as a business, and it was a key catalyst for growth. That was a huge add-on, but and nowhere in the conversation that when we acquired, as we were going through the acquisition process with Digicom, was there any real mention about what type of government grants could be available to grow the business. We have enjoyed government grants in the past for our wireless business in Newfoundland, but it was never the key business driver. And in our acquisition strategy, it's a nice to have, but it's not a need to have. We will not make an acquisition, or we will not do a fiber build just because solely based on can we get a government grant associated with that. Our economics are such that we can profitably drive the business forward and grow our fiber deployment with leading industry build economics.
Okay.
So we're quite very competitive against some of the larger players in the space, even though we're a regional player.
Rob, what would you as you look at PomeGran versus your competitors? What do you see as your competitive advantage versus those? I mean, it seems like you all take a unique and thoughtful outlook toward acquisitions, which I put in the ledger. But what else?
Well, so a few things. One, it's a very good one. We only target underserved rural markets. Two, can we profitably deliver fiber to the home or with or without government grants? Can we increase the employee base of the acquisition company? So when we look at an acquisition, we're not looking. We don't look at how can we consolidate, how can we restructure the business to grow the business. We actually look how can we grow the business first and foremost profitably. Do they have the right teams in place? Is there any gaps, and can we grow that business? We really do want to see that whole community thrive under our fiber to the home leadership.
Got it.
Then we want to make sure we maintain the brands. We really want to make sure that the brands stay, because there's a real value in that. People don't realize that in small rural communities, local brands mean a lot. People want to shop locally, so that larger players don't necessarily keep that as part of their prerequisite when they're looking at an acquisition. And then I think really our pricing is, again, we try pricing our offerings about 30% lower than the incumbents.
Interesting.
So we
have
a really good competitive moat, better technology, better service delivery, and like our CatQuest communication last year won Platinum Award for customer service in its marketplace.
Wow.
And again, it beat all the incumbents, which are multiple times larger than it. It just goes to show that our people really do care about their customers, and we take great pride in serving them.
Got it. And I guess my last question, the inevitable, what keeps you up awake at night? Worry on the work front. What do you worry about?
Can we deliver the service that we promised to our customers and our investors?
Well, I mean, with that kind of penetration rate, it seems like you are. So
I think the other thing that keeps me up is we've moved from we're moving more into more of a larger organization.
Hmm.
And so
Mhm.
there's a need to become much more efficient and and make the business run by data rather than being run by having people who've been there, done that for past 20 plus years, and they've done an amazing job. But now adding intelligence to it that's beyond one person, but to a collective as a group. So that keeps me
Mhm.
up trying to think, okay, how can we make this much better than it really is? We really want to make sure that in the end, in 5 years, people will know throughout North America who PomeGran is as a service offer, as a broadband service provider.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, that's great. It sounds like you all are doing some really interesting things up north, and definitely a story
Yeah.
that watch and running with great success. So thank you for the time today, Rob. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer. It's been a real pleasure speaking with you.
You too.
Take care.